Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, CIBC Wood Gundy's Ross Clark takes a look at the record-setting markets on both sides of the border. Trends Journal publisher Gerald Celente believes gold and silver will go lower as the U.S. dollar gets stronger. He says high-end real estate is losing ground around the planet. He takes a look at Canada's predicted economic growth and compares it to India and China's. Wolf Street's Wolf Richter examines the automotive market and takes a look at what cars of the future will be like. How long will it be before we have self-driving cars? Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have company showcase updates from American Manganese CEO Larry Reaugh and Glens Pay President Penny Green. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Clark. He's an investment advisor at CIBC Wood Gundy in Vancouver. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Good to be with you, Jim.
Excitement on both sides of the borders when it comes to the equity markets this week.
Just about any border, whether it happened to be the 49th parallel or any other in most of the civilized world, we ended up with just amazing earnings popping out on Thursday, enough to spark the market once again. We'd had good earnings early in the week and then great ones once again towards the tail end. So here you are with big gaps up as far as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, the big names that really drive things. And this is just building upon the momentum that we've been seeing since early in September. And we've been going through rotation. It was the Dow that was leading. Well, actually, I guess it was probably the Russell 2000 that led us off the bottom after having a false breakdown at the end of August. Then it was the Dow that took over the leadership, and now we're looking at the NASDAQ doing its thing. So clearly, when you're getting this rotation of leadership and you've got the financials as part of the group, there's a lot of capability for the market to continue on. So even if this momentum runs out of steam and starts to correct, we would look for the first correction to being a significant buying opportunity. And when we go back and we take a look at the other momentum moves like this, the ones that come into my mind would be late 1986 or the late 1990s, 98 through 99, when you were building momentum really nicely. And first corrections, we've done some work on them in terms of the levels to look for. Typically, when you've had a run, in the case of the S&P, for 11 consecutive months, you'd only look for 1 month with a lower low before you'd be back to new highs. So any pullback that we get in this strong seasonal period that we've now entered, I think needs to be looked at from an investment perspective as an opportunity.
How is the Canadian dollar doing and other currencies?
Well, Canadian has had a pretty rough stretch for the last couple of months, and this was after failing to participate with the oil rally. Now, as of the end of the week, we have reached what we had established as a significant target. The Canadian dollar has come back, given back 50% of the rally it had from the May bottom. It's also come back to what we look for at the 50-week moving average. Now that historically, in the Canadian dollar, when you've been in a trending phase and you get these large corrections, that 50-week average is pretty important. And on the other side of the coin, if we look at the U.S. dollar, not just against the Canadian, but against the index, the basket, it paused at its 20-week average coming off this nice bottom and then came to life again this week, and it's got a what we classify as a head and shoulders bottom, a nice rounding effect to it, and it's probably getting close to its next upside target at its 50-week moving average. Now, if we take all of that together on the currency side and look at precious metals and mining stocks, we're seeing what we would expect to see there, that the gold and silver markets, having topped out in the spring and had now 2 good waves of selling, are into a point where they're probably ready for another good bounce. We've got some good technicals that we look at here from either a retracement perspective, money flow, and some DeMark indicators, and it looks like there's a decent bounce ready to happen there.
Gold, of course, connected very closely to the U.S. dollar. What's that relationship?
Yeah, well, as I say, if we're going to get this interim high, I think in the dollar index, that would be natural to see an interim low in gold. Now, we're looking at the COT numbers this week, the commitment of traders. It would suggest that this isn't the final sort of top for the dollar index. I would expect that you'll see a pause here and then continued strength after that. Likewise, if we take a look at the gold commitment of traders numbers, we've been extremely high in the spring and had been slowly giving up as far as the speculators were concerned on the long side. There's still a small overweight position there, so I think if we get this bounce in the gold, probably look for one more final low out into November, December. That optimally would be the seasonal time to be getting fairly aggressive on those ones.
Ross, before we go, next week there'll be some changes to look forward for yourself.
Yes, we've got some things that are changing as far as my business is concerned, and I would invite the listener to be back a week from now, and we'll have an update with some things of interest for them.
Ross, thanks a lot.
You're welcome, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Clark. If you have any questions for Ross, you can send them to chartworks@gmail.com. Coming up, Gerald Celente, next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Riaugh Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork will commence later this year. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
My guest is Gerald Celente. He's the publisher of the Trends Journal, available online at trendsjournal.com. He's speaking to us from historic Kingston, New York. Gerald, it's great to have you back on This Week in Money.
Always great being on with you, Jim.
Since we last spoke, the U.S. markets continue going higher. Is this a runaway bull market?
Well, I've been on your show for a number of years, and you've been getting the Trends Journal for a number of years. We're the first magazine that called the Trump victory back in May of 2016. And you know how negative I was on the economy, or the markets, I should say. And when Trump got elected, people forget. When he was beating Clinton that night on November 8th, 2016, the Dow futures dropped 800 plus points on the anticipation of a Trump victory. And then we watched the markets bounce back quickly. And then within a week we said, this is real. This is going to keep moving forward. So there's two different answers to your question. The market rally is rallying because they're doing more and more to make the market players richer and bigger. So that'll keep going as long as interest rates stay low. If they raise them 25 basis points, it's going to take some air out of the market. And we've been forecasting a 10% correction for a number of months. There's always a correction in these. But for the general economy, it's still pretty rotten. It's not much of an improvement of what it was before, particularly for the people that are in the upper 10%. So for the 90%, it's more of the same, a little better, a little worse, depending on where you fall in that 90%. But as for the equity markets, a correction and then slow continued strength in the equity markets until there's some kind of an outside wild card, whether it's made by Mother Nature or man-made. We don't see a major crash. We see a correction only.
Gold and silver seem to be stuck in a trading range. Are they likely to break out of this range and go higher or lower?
Well, the downside risk right now is lower, particularly since the European Central Bank just announced that they're going to keep their stimulus going, and that means the euro is going to get weaker and the dollar is going to get stronger. The stronger the dollar gets, the higher interest rates go. The opportunity cost for holding gold grows higher. Gold doesn't pay any interest rates. It costs money to hold. So the stronger the dollar gets, the weaker gold goes. So gold right now to us is in a 320 to 1150 range, with 1150 being the bottom end of the range. And that's really not a very high downside risk as we see it, considering that it costs about $1,200 to pull the stuff out of the ground. And then the upside risk that we've been saying also, I've been saying on your show for years, is that gold has to break strongly over $1,400 an ounce, and it hasn't done that. And it needs to go 1480, 1460, 1450, 1470, that kind of thing for quite a while. And then from that point, however, it becomes a Bitcoin bounce. In other words, when gold solidifies over that number, we see it shooting to 2,000 and above.
Does the U.S. dollar look like it's bottoming or taking a breather before it heads lower?
Again, it just is gaining strength because the euro is getting stronger. So it depends on what other currencies do. And we believe that the Chinese are going to start devaluing their yuan again because they need to increase exports so they could keep their bubble economy from not bursting. And so the dollar's finding strength only because the other currencies are so weak. And it's also important to understand as well that there can be great yuan pressure against the dollar in a very different way. And that is, the United States and NATO, European nations and others have put sanctions on Russia. So it's harder for Russia to deal in dollars. But China's still buying oil from Russia big time. Russia's the largest oil producer in the world. And they're buying oil from Iran as well. But they're not dealing in petrodollars anymore. The petrodollar was put in place by Richard Nixon back in 1974. The deal was, hey, we'll protect you Saudis, but here's the deal. In order to pay for the protection, you got to sell your oil in dollars, petrodollars. So that's what OPEC did. So now everybody that buys oil pays for it in dollars, no more. China's buying oil from Russia, Iran, and paying them in yuan. But here's the deal. You don't want our yuan? You can cash it in for gold. And that's what's going on. Russia became, by the way, the largest purchaser of gold last year. And not only that, I mentioned about the deal that Richard Nixon did in 74 with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, of course, is also a big seller of gas and oil to China. They're selling it and getting yuan back, not petrodollars. So if the petrodollar dives, dies, the dollar dives, gold prices will soar, and this could be, when I said wild card, that could be a kind of wild card that will crash the markets and crash the economy if more and more countries abandon the petrodollar.
Is real estate in a peaking trend around the world?
On the top end it is, definitely. The top end isn't selling. It's the lower ends, the middle, not the top. And you know, there's a saying, the fish rots from the head down. And that's where you're seeing the rot coming. In the commercial markets, in the expensive condominiums, and prices for houses about the 1-3 million and above. And you're even seeing it in places, you know, whether it's San Francisco, New York, even places like the Hamptons, you know, that where the rich people go in New York to spend their summers. The top isn't selling anymore. There's a load of them on the market. But below it, that's selling. So we don't see a real estate pop, but we see a real estate slowdown. Also, a lot of for rent signs in high rental districts, commercial districts, retail districts. You could go around and you see one after another in the high rent districts. They can't afford the top rents because a number of the big national players came in, and they're the ones that drove up the rents. But now that their sales are softening because of both online and people not having money to buy it, the bigs have pulled out of these hot areas, and now the rents are too high for anybody else to fill up the spaces. So that's where we're going to see a downturn as well.
Is copper in a bullish trend?
Well, so far it is, but it depends on where China is going to go. Dr. Copper, they call it, because it's used in so many different industries, from high-tech to industrial manufacturing. And China buys between 40 and 50% of it a year. So Chinese demand has been driving up copper prices. As long as the Chinese economy continues to grow, and now they're looking for it to grow between 6.7 to 6.9%, copper is going to stay in the range that it's at, as we see it. If China and India grow stronger, then watch copper prices rise.
The Canadian government has predicted Canada's economic growth this year will be around 3%, the best in the G7. Are these numbers for real? Can we believe them?
You know, it's hard to say, in the sense that if 3% growth isn't bad in today's world economy, 4 used to be the norm for that showed good growth. In the United States, you're looking at 2, maybe 2.5. I mean, I don't know if you could believe them or not. I don't believe anything the government says. I mean, but you know, how valid the numbers are, how crooked they are, I don't know. But if they come up with a 3%, you know, that's a decent one in today's climate. But again, what did I say about, I mean, we talk about, I mentioned India and China. India, we're talking almost 5.7%, 6%, and they're in a downturn. They're dumping more money into the economy now, the central bank, to boost it, because they called in all those rupees back in November 8th, 2016, and then they also put a high sales tax on, so that really hurt growth there. But what are we talking about? 5.7. And what I mentioned with China, between 6.7 to maybe 7%. So now the United States, they're bragging in Canada if they have a 3%. So let's put it in perspective. It means more of the same, but not great.
Is there a trend in motion between renewable energy and atomic energy?
Is there a trend in motion between renewable and atomic? Well, let's look at atomic. You just had an election over there in South Korea, and the guy Moon, who won, had promised throughout his campaign that he wasn't going to build any nuclear power plants, particularly since they're so close to Japan, and they know what a Fukushima looks, smells, and feels like. But like all politicians, he's backtracked, and now he's building nuclear plants. There's going to be an alternative energy. We don't see it right at this point. We had higher hopes for it before in terms of cold fusion, zero-point energy, and others. But if we go to nuclear, if they go into the thorium-based, then there is a possibility for a strong rebirth. But if they stay with uranium, we don't see it happening. And as far as the solar world, yes, to an extent, but not enough. So we need something bigger than that: wind power, solar, biofuel, geothermal, or nuclear. And we haven't seen it yet.
We'll have more with Gerald Celente next on This Week in Money.
I'm Larry Reaugh, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal. Gerald, cryptocurrencies continue to move higher. Our government's looking at cryptos as a way to track all money and eliminate paper and coins.
Not so much on the crypto, on the cashless they are. That's why they want you to go cashless, so they could show every penny that you spend. Crypto's a little bit of a different deal. A lot of governments don't want it. Particularly Russia, they banned it. China. I was talking about China earlier, and you go back to when Bitcoin really took a bounce. Go back to 2016. Early 2016, the Chinese markets are going through a very difficult time. Yuan is going very low. You got 1.3 billion people in China. You have 32% middle class now, gone up from 5% in 2000 when they joined the World Trade Organization. They don't want to see their currency devalued. What were they doing? They were buying Bitcoin. That's what drove the price up initially when it hit the $1,500 mark in no time at all. But then you have countries like Japan, where Bitcoin trading and cryptocurrency trading is perfectly not only legal, but also it's being pushed by the countries. South Korea, another one. So here's what we see. We see the cryptocurrency markets beyond Bitcoin continuing to grow. Not so much because the governments want them or want to stop them, is because people are looking for alternatives away from fiat currencies. The difference with the cryptocurrencies, you only can print or digitally print so many of them. Dollars, yuan, yen, euros, you can print all you want. The value devaluates because of the more supply and demand. So we see a future for cryptocurrencies. Governments are going to try to stop them. Some are going to go into them. But again, it's a cashless world. So for the millennial generation, cryptocurrencies are their gold. My generation, it was gold. People, you go to China, people aren't using credit cards or cash. They're just putting their app out there and they're paying. So there's no in God we trust anymore. There's no currency of the realm. And that's why cryptocurrencies, we believe, are going to take a place and a face in a country near you around the world.
Are governments likely to create their own cryptocurrencies and outlaw private cryptos?
Yes, Russia's one of them, and they're creating one. Japan's, on the other hand, has created the J-coin, but they haven't banned the other one. So it's going to be a combination of the two, and again, because of these actions, high volatility. You think they want a cryptocurrency in Venezuela, particularly where all the people are doing Bitcoin mining, and you have the bolivar that's going nowhere and inflation going higher and higher. So of course they're going to try to stop it. But again, it's a digital world and a blockchain world that blocks out governments as well. So you may be able to keep doing trading and in a way that the government can't stop.
Could government-created cryptocurrencies allow governments to eliminate all debts by paying them off with their made-up cryptos?
They make up anything else. Why not do that? I mean, they make up a thing called quantitative easing, zero interest rate policy, and negative interest rate policy. I mean, you're buying a 10-year Japanese bond, and you're getting negative rates, which means you're getting less back than you bought the bond for. They could do anything they want. It's a freak show. And you got a bunch of freaks running it, and any freak show, you can make it as freaky as you want. So yeah, they could do that. They're doing anything they want anyway. They're printing up all the money they want with nothing backing it.
Are cryptocurrencies hack-proof until they get hacked?
Of course, until they get hacked. But this blockchain technology is pretty solid in a lot of ways. Matter of fact, you even have people like Jamie Dimon, the head of the JP Morgan Chase, and, coming out and calling Bitcoin a fraud because these are backed by nothing. And then in the next sentence, he talks about the digital dollars that are blockchain proof that JP Morgan Chase deals with. Okay, I got it. This guy calls a fraud he should know what a fraud is. How about digital dollars backed by nothing and printed on nothing? They could print all you want. That's not a fraud. But again, going back to the blockchain is real. And when you buy a cryptocurrency, what you have to go through to buy this stuff is not easy. It's a difficult process. Anybody that's tried it knows it. And the other thing, let's take blockchain. If blockchain is being embraced as it is now by all the major banks, we could have blockchain-proof election systems whereby we don't have to go to voting booths anymore. We could vote online, and it's protected by blockchain. And it's a better system than the one they got now, where you got to wait online for hours, or you got all these rigged, breakdowns all the time are happening, and they're always calling for recounts because the things aren't real. So blockchain could be a positive in another way, and elections could do it. We could have referendums on elections as well, so that the people could call the shots rather than the politicians.
So, in other words, it could open the world to direct democracy, allow us to vote on just about anything.
You got it.
Would politicians go for a world like that?
But look, why would a whore go for not getting paid? Wait, politicians. I hate that word. People keep using it. Anybody that looks up, and I'm not going after you about it, of course. I'm saying the word disgusts me. Because when you look up the definition of politician, it ends with getting power. Power. Why on earth should we have people in charge of we the people? Who made this up that I gotta have some clown, male or female, tell me what to do because they want power? They don't want morality or integrity. Again, look up the definition. So, of course, they don't want us to have it. Just like I said, just like a whore wants to get paid, politicians want power.
What would happen in a cryptocurrency world if the power went out? And we've had huge natural disasters already where there's no power, you would have no money.
Yeah, for the time being. Again, what happens when there's a big snowstorm or a hurricane or a typhoon? So, it happens, comes and goes. Take it easy for a little while and relax yourself. It'll be back on in a little while.
Why did China crack down on digital currency exchanges, and is it working?
Yes, the reason, as I said, China cracked down on digital currency exchanges is because they were concerned about the outflow of money. And that's what drove up the price of Bitcoin back when the stock market and yuan were falling. So people were looking to minimize their losses, so they bought cryptocurrencies, particularly Bitcoin. So China wants to stop the outflows. And that's why we're saying we think the yuan, the Chinese currency, is going to go lower because they need to increase their exports. And they're trying to stop capital outflows of people putting their money out of yuan and into something else, and that's why it's stopping it. And yes, it has been effective, because China was a major market in the Bitcoin market, and they've gone down by many percentage. That doesn't mean it'll stop it completely with WeApps and all the others that they have, but it's going to slow it down.
What kinds of money have intrinsic value?
Very simple. The ones backed by gold.
Canada and Britain sold off all of their gold reserves. Russia, as you mentioned, is buying it like crazy. Has that been a big mistake for the UK and Canada?
Well, the governments are a mistake. Of course, to me it is. Germany just demanded all their gold back that when the Cold War was going on, that they brought it to other countries, and now they've repatriated it. So the Germans are buying it. The UK, look what kind of shape they're in. Nobody knows where that place is going to go. In Canada, Canada's doing okay. But, what if there's a crisis that happens? What if all of a sudden oil prices really start to plummet again? What happens if what if NAFTA goes through? And all of a sudden, your trade deals stop, and the GDP starts to really slide. Bye-bye, was it the loony?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The JFK files, what have you heard?
Nothing yet, but of course, anybody goes to our website, they could see I had met John Connolly, the governor of Texas, who sat in front of Kennedy. I have a picture of me, him, and his wife Nellie in front of the book depository in 1992. And it was their first time back since the assassination. And he wanted to meet me because I had written in my book Trend Tracking back in 1989 that there'd be a new third party and that someone like Ross Perot would be the candidate. So they parked out in front of a limousine parked out in front of the book depository. He said what happened that day, he and Nellie. And he began it by saying, I heard a gunshot. And I looked to my right, and I knew it was a gunshot because I've been hunting since I'm a little boy. I didn't see anything. I looked to my left. I was wearing a dark blue suit that day, and there were brains on my shoulder. He said, I know there were brains because my daddy was a butcher. And that's the way the story started. And as we're walking back into the Anatole Hotel, and I'm cutting this very short, he looked at me and he said, I read your book Trend Tracking. He says, it's a fine piece of work. And I know your heart's in the right place. He said, but you don't have a clue what's going on. And neither do the American people. Because if they did, there'd be a revolution in this country. So we'll see what happens with the Kennedy papers, if they release them and when. And the other thing, too, he and Nellie both said they heard 3 gunshots. And again, Connolly's the guy that took the bullet in the back, sitting in front of Kennedy.
Do you think when they do release the files, they'll be so redacted, they'll be useless?
Well, if they're redacted, then they shouldn't release them at all. It'll be just more government propaganda, telling the story they want us to say.
How will the weather-related destruction in America affect the economy?
Only temporarily. The America's economies, you're already seeing from, particularly down in Texas, on the oil front, production's back to where it almost was. And it in some ways it actually will boost the economy because people will be building more, buying more to get back on. But the sad thing, and to me, is that how little the government does to help the people. Rather than the troops being overseas, blowing up other countries and then rebuilding them, the troops should be here helping we the people, and they're doing very little, and FEMA's a joke besides. So a lot of people are going to be losing a lot. But overall, it won't have that lasting effect on the economy.
Could higher interest rates destroy President Trump's economic plans?
Yes, and they will. Again, when they raise interest rates, and it looks like they're going to raise them in December, you're going to start seeing a slowdown happen. If they raise them 3 times, as they're talking about in 2018, it's a recession. As a matter of fact, we believe we're going to be moving into a stage 1 recession.
Why would a government do that deliberately?
Well, they have to raise interest rates to some point. this whole scam of negative zero interest rate policy can only go on for so long. And so the banks really aren't making the money they want because they can't charge the interest that they like. So they're going to be pushing interest rates up to the new normal is much lower than what it used to be, but still to some extent. They'll be raising them, and they'll also raise them if the economy grows. When the economy grows, the interest rates grow automatically. So you could have an inverse relationship in the sense that long-term rates could be low, but short-term rates could be high. So they want to avoid something like that, and because that could really put a damper on the economy if short-term rates really take a hit. And you could have that kind of inverse relationship if the economy keeps growing and they don't raise rates.
Is the American dream still alive, or has it changed?
The American dream is dying very quickly. You know, I mentioned in China, just think of the number. 17 years ago, 2%, 5% of the Chinese population was considered middle class. Today, almost 35%. That's some raise. And look at the United States, the exact opposite. You have 74% of the people in the United States living paycheck to paycheck.
Gerald, is there any way for us to be optimistic about the future?
Yeah. You can create, 78%, I said 74%. 78% of the Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. The optimism about the future is to create one. And you're seeing it happening in other countries, whether you like their governments or not. New governments are taking over the old ones. They call it anti-establishment movements. It's not an anti-establishment movement. It's an anti-corruption, anti-disgusting movement that the people are tired of getting shafted by the people in power. And if they could do it in Austria, they could do it in Germany, they could do it in Czech Republic, they could do it in Italy, as they saw this past weekend with the people wanting more autonomy in the northern sectors, and with Catalonia wanting freedom from Spain. You could do it in Canada, you could do it in America, but it's up to the people to make the change.
Gerald, how can people find out more about the Trends Journal?
Well, they could go to trendsresearch.com, trendsresearch.com, or trendsjournal.com. And it's the only place where you're going to get history before it happens.
Gerald, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
Well, thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal, available online at trendsjournal.com. He was speaking to us from historic Kingston, New York. Coming up, Wolf Richter next on This Week in Money.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineer gold mine in the Atlan district of northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the U.S. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the U.S. and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
Lotus Ventures Inc. is a BC-based medical marijuana company poised to launch into the rapidly evolving cannabis sector. Lotus is in the final review stage of the Health Canada approvals to become a licensed producer, having arranged facility financing of up to $12 million, plus building permits for its prototype indoor production facility. Shares trade under the symbol J on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Visit our website at lotusventures.ca.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
My guest is Wolf Richter, publisher of wolfstreet.com. Welcome back to This Week in Money, Wolf.
Thanks for having me back, Jim. Always a pleasure.
The auto sector, has it rebounded? Is it on the way down? And were the hurricanes exactly what the auto industry needed?
The auto industry needs a lot of natural demand. And natural disaster like a hurricane is not really what the industry needs. And nobody needs that. It's a terrible thing to happen. And it's a very costly thing for the economy. So it's not really a good thing for anyone. But in terms of sales volume, there is going to be, and there already has been, a significant uptick in September. And so we're talking about especially Hurricane Harvey, which hit Texas, which caused a lot of flooding, which destroyed a lot of cars. In Florida, the hurricane was harder on homes. It was more wind damage there and other things. But in Texas, it was more disaster for cars. And the total number of cars that were damaged or destroyed by the flooding is not known and may never be known. But the numbers are pretty significant, though they're not quite as high maybe as the first estimates have been. And we saw that in the first week or two of September, sales were still in Texas were still very low because of some of the dealers were still closed, and and a lot of the vehicles were damaged for sale, so they couldn't be sold. But then new vehicles came into the state, and others were brought back online at the dealership lots, and it took off with a vengeance. So you had an enormous amount of business the last 2 weeks of September. And so in southern Texas, the car business boomed in the last 2 weeks of September, and that continues into October. We don't have the numbers yet, but October is going to be very strong. This will continue into November as well. At some point, this will taper off. Now, most of the vehicles will be replaced by used vehicles. So when a car that's 2 years old and is insured, has flood insurance, or it really has comprehensive insurance and therefore is insured for flood damage, the insurance company might total that car. It will pay the owner enough to buy another used car of about the same age and type. So many of the cars that were damaged and totaled will be replaced by used cars, not new cars. Many of them will be fixed. So if you didn't have insurance and your car was flood damaged and you can clean it up and it still runs, you'll continue to drive it, and then eventually you'll sell it and nobody will ever know that it was flood damaged because it wasn't totaled and it doesn't have a flood damage title. So these cars are out there. On the new car side, the used car business will be booming too, but that's a little bit harder to track in terms of the numbers because we don't have a centralized way of doing that. But used car dealers are selling, the auction cars are selling, so this is working. On the new car side, there was enough strength in Texas in September to bring up the overall U.S. vehicle sales. And car sales, so comparing truck to car sales are still weak. That's not changing. Texas is not a place where you can sell a lot of cars. It's mostly pickup trucks and SUVs and crossovers. So they're doing really well. Car sales are still not doing well. They're still down in the double digits for the year so far. So now the question is, will the replacement demand on the new car side be enough to pull up volume for the rest of the year to where it matches last year's? And we'll have to see. So it's really hard to estimate that. It could be close. It could be that before the hurricane, we were down about 340,000 new vehicles in the United States from year over year. So we would have to sell 340,000 more vehicles for the rest of the year, plus the standard that we sold last year, that period. That's quite a big chunk. So I don't know that we will get there. So I still my base scenario is still that next year, this year will still be below last year's in terms of new vehicle volume. But definitely right now in Texas, there's a big surge of vehicle sales, both new and used, and that's going to show up in the numbers.
Any sign of flood-damaged vehicles showing up in other parts of North America right now?
Yeah, they'll be everywhere. And I've said this before. If a vehicle has a flood title and it's in good shape, and you know it's flood damaged, and you drive it and things seem to work, it's okay to buy it if you get a really, really, really low price. So if it's at a quarter of the book price, for example, and the vehicle looks good and runs fine, you might give it a shot, 30%, of book price. But it has to be a really low price. The problem arises when you get a vehicle that doesn't have a flood damage title, so you don't know it has been in a flood. And it could be the kind of vehicle I was just talking about a minute ago, where a guy doesn't have insurance, the insurance company doesn't pay anything, doesn't total the vehicle, so there's no official mark on that title that it has been flood damaged, and he cleans it up and fixes it and sells it. So that vehicle will return to the used car market without a flood stamp on the title. And you have to do your own research to see, do the title research a good place to look is if it's from a county or an area that had flood damage. So if you can find out where it came from, that's helpful. And then look at the vehicle itself to see if you find toxic waste materials in the seats, under the seats, in the wheel wells. If you find sand someplace, those kinds of things, or rust in weird places, or watermarks up high on the dashboard, or something like that. Yeah, but this may be hard to determine, but they'll be showing up for years to come.
Moving on to the future, how soon do you think we'll see practical robot cars out there?
The estimates vary. Everybody's got their own estimates. Ford, GM, the chip makers, and they, the sort of the ballpark we're looking at right now is around 4 years. And there's different stages of self-driving cars. There's a lot of standard, already standard features that self-driving cars have, that in current cars. So they're sort of automatic pilot features and self-parking features and those kinds of things. What we don't have yet is the highest level of self-driving car where you really don't need a driver and you don't need a steering wheel and you don't need to pay attention where this thing is going. And so this is still down in the future. That 4 years may be a rolling 4 years, so next year they may still say it's 4 years away, and so, as these things go. But it used to be a dream, 10 years ago, it was an impossibility essentially, and now it is considered a strong possibility. Congress has passed some laws to accommodate them. Insurance companies are struggling with it. So this is happening at all levels. I think the first self-driving cars will be in fleets. So there'll be taxi fleets or delivery fleets. Corporate managed vehicles that are probably still somewhat under the control of the manufacturer to make sure the systems are working right. In terms of selling self-driving cars to the retail customer, I think that's further away than 4 years. This winter, they're going to try the technologies in the northern United States in winter conditions, so in snowy conditions, and to work those systems out. There's a lot of hurdles still to deal with. human drivers are terrible. Yeah, human drivers cause 36,000 deaths a year in the United States. Human drivers can't see at night. They can't see in rain. They're terrible when it comes to driving on ice and snow on average. So a self-driving car doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a lot better than human drivers. And that's really not that hard. You know, human drivers get drunk and they get tired, and, you know, and they have vision problems, and they talk on their smartphone, and they do all these things that a self-driving car doesn't do. So, if a self-driving car becomes significantly better than a human driver, but still isn't perfect, at that point, you know, I think it becomes viable. And, you know, I think 4 years may be about right for the first fleets to start putting, self-driving cars to work. I think for the retail customers, it's, you know, it could be a few more years.
What will these cars look like? Will they be like the interior would resemble your living room or your kitchen?
Yeah, you know, I've seen these prototypes of self-driving cars. The interiors, and it doesn't look at all like a car, and, you know, the seats are facing the wrong way, and, you know, they're around a table, and I mean, you can do whatever. Once you take the driver out of a car, you can essentially do with interior whatever you want. And so, you know, it could be anything. But these are show models. So I would think, just my gut feeling is that the transition is going to be gradual, that more and more self-driving features will show up in cars, even though the driver is still supposed to be engaged, and that even once the driver doesn't have to be engaged anymore, there'll still be a steering wheel there for a while, so that the driver can drive. And once the steering wheel disappears, probably it will still pretty much look like a normal car, until consumers have gotten used to the idea. You know, it's very difficult for a culture that has grown up around driving cars that suddenly, you know, there's something different out there that's completely different, looks different, does everything differently, and there's a lot of consumer resistance to it. So I think it's going to be gradual. They're going to look like regular vehicles at first, and they'll gradually move away from that. And assuming that they don't run into any insurmountable problems, and there haven't been any yet, but it could be that they run into an insurmountable problem, or a problem that they can't deal with for a long time. But I don't see that happening. You know, so I think it'll be a gradual transition.
Wolf, how can people find out more about Wolf Street?
Wolfstreet.com. You can Google that, or you can go to it, and everything is on my site. Everything is free. So we would love to have you.
Thanks a lot for being on This Week in Money.
Thank you, Jim.
My guest has been Wolf Richter, publisher of wolfstreet.com. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark, Gerald Celente, and Wolf Richter, and thank you for listening. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have company showcase updates with American Manganese CEO Larry Reaugh and Glance Pay President Penny Green. I'm Jim Goddard. If you have any questions for the show, you can email us at info@howstreet.com. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. We're speaking with Larry Reaugh. He's the president and CEO of American Manganese. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
Well, Jim, it's always nice to be here.
What's happening with Cobalt?
Well, Cobalt is still hanging in there close to $60,000 a ton, and what that means to everybody is there is definitely a shortage that's developing. We know about Volkswagen. We talked about that last year. last week where they failed to get a long-term contract over 5 years. Now, we haven't heard anything from the other users, and they represent 46% of the market. But one of the stainless steel specialty companies in Austria has gone out to get a long-term contract over the next year in Cobalt. So they're starting to get concerned, along with the battery industry, that there's not going to be a supply out there, and I wish them all luck in the world in getting a year contract on Cobalt. And so there's going to come a time when the highest bidder is going to get the Cobalt. It's as simple as that. And the Cobalt supply just can't be met as readily as some of the other metals in the world. So, we got a lot of, we believe that the market will start paying attention to recycling. And recycling is kind of the poor sister in the entire group, whether it's a lithium or cobalt explorer or a miner or LIB batteries, EV cars. Recycling has been cycled back, so to say, to the last one on the list, but I see that changing, and it's going to change this year. And there's going to be more attention being brought to that because really it is an alternate source of cobalt, and it's not being recognized as such. Now, that's enough said on cobalt. I'd like to say that our patents are certainly on budget and schedule. We've received the flow charts from Chemetco, so that's all being done. These will be submitted with the patent application, and I think there's something like about 8 of those. And, so there's a lot of work involved here. Chemetco, in order to make the patent application as airtight as they can, they have got to boil down, over 1,000 tests that were done over the last year. And so we leave them alone, let them get the patent done rather than try to get them sidetracked. And so that's where the patents stand. And that brings up the next topic, which would be what's up for the company next year. Well, we haven't budgeted that except let's say ballpark budget. So we're not going to even talk about what that's going to be and when it's going to get started. But hopefully it would be formulated sometime in December or late November, and we'd get a start in late December or early November, depending on funds. So that is what's going to happen next year. Our budget's going to be substantial, and but we'll have to wait and see how that develops. We haven't had the meetings with Chemetco to get a formalized price, and but I don't see any problems with that because they understand the technology, they understand what they need, and it makes it a heck of a lot simpler than going out to somebody else that boils down their information and tries to build a pilot plant for the company that may or may not be totally suitable. Now, the other thing that's in the market all the time, and I talk about these things because I get lots of queries about them, and I think I've talked about this before, but there's a lot of new technologies coming out. It almost looks like once a day on lithium, on batteries for EVs, not necessarily lithium ion. And I've said before that it takes time to commercialize these, and it used to take 10 to 15 years to commercialize a battery before the EV company would feel safe to go ahead and manufacture those batteries for their new EVs. So that may be reduced down, I'd say 5 to 10 years, and so I don't see any other chemistries that have the power and the energy that, for example, cobalt has. So I don't see cobalt getting totally erased from the equation, but I do see it dropping back in total weight or total percentage in the battery. But that's not going to make a lot of difference when you're talking millions of batteries. There's still going to be a humongous shortage of cobalt. And there's going to be competition for that cobalt from the other industries that have been utilizing it for decades. So batteries, yes. Gigafactories, I notice a lot of gigafactories now are talking about having recycling involved. I wish them luck on that. Maybe they pick up the phone and phone me. We can put a recycling plant at the end of their gigafactory because we can't find anybody that's advanced as we are. And we're starting to get a lot of attention in that area. And something will happen. I know everybody's impatient, so am I. Frustrated that they can't see the advantages and the just exactly what our recycling brings to the table. That said and done, we've worked the formula for our success on being able to extract all of the cathode materials from a battery. And we've been successful at that, and that's where everybody else has fallen down. So we have not spent the money that's required, although we're working towards that, on the disassembly of the actual battery itself, the cell. And because if you couldn't get the cathode material back and get that value out of the product, you were really, if you're spending half your budget on taking a battery apart and then you find out you can't even get it back at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense. In order for this thing to improve the environment and to set up a circular economy and bring the EV cars into total compliance, you have to be able to get that cathode material out. The rest of it's all mechanical. If you put a battery together, you certainly can take it apart because there's not the complexity in taking it apart as there is in the assembly. So that's kind of, I don't have anything new to say. I've got new things to say, but I can't talk about them right now because we have to, they're either not complete or some things have to be press released before I can talk about them. So it's this is just in general to let everybody know that the company's still working hard and that Cameco's working hard on getting the patent application in before November the 10th or on November the 10th. And we expect there's not going to be any delays once the flow sheets are done. That pretty much explains the whole process. And so now it's a matter of putting the words around it. And you got to remember that when you're patenting something, there's things in there you got to be careful about what you say. And so this patent wants to be kind of bulletproofed against somebody just taking it and copying it and starting to recycle their own recycling business. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. So we have other advantages that we've discovered going through the bench scale work that would work better and should be patented, and so we got to be careful about not divulging that because we'll be going for other patents on this. And just let everybody know that we are moving ahead as quickly as funds allow, and we expect that this coming year is perhaps this coming month will be a turning point for the company, and it's certainly going to be a big milestone for the company. And that's kind of what I just had to say. I just wanted to remind everybody that we're still working away out there, and the patent announcement will come once they are filed.
Larry, can you maybe explain to our new listeners what exactly American Manganese proposes?
American Manganese is a critical metals company. It's a mining company that has assets, and I just want to add a line in here that people forget. Our assets all lend themselves to the battery industry. We have a rare earth property. We have a high-grade cobalt gold property, and we also have a manganese property in which when we do move ahead, we'll be moving ahead on the EMD side of it. So it's not like the American Manganese is a one-trick pony. We have an existing patent. We have patent pending, which will be filed in, I guess, 3 weeks. So it's we are still moving ahead as a mining company, but what we've done is we've exploited some technology that we developed in manganese, and that technology is working for us with significant changes in the recycling of the cathode materials. American Manganese, you can find everything you want on our website at AmericanManganeseInc.com. You can contact the company or myself at LREAUGH@AMYMN.com, or give me a phone call at 778-574-4444.
And Larry, what platforms are you traded on?
We're traded on the TSX Venture Exchange. That's our dominant exchange, and under the symbol AMY. We're traded in the U.S. under the symbol AMYZF, and we're traded in Frankfurt under the symbol 2AM.
Larry, thanks a lot for the update.
You're welcome, Jim, and have a good weekend.
I'm Jim Goddard. My guest has been Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. We were speaking on October 27th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. We're talking with Penny Green, co-founder and president of Glance Technologies. Welcome back to the show, Penny.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here.
I understand that Glance Technologies had a great third quarter. Can you tell us about it?
Certainly. We just released our financial results from the quarter ended August 31st, 2017, and we're very pleased with the results. So our revenues are up 90% over last quarter. And if you look at the same period last year, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's up 55,000% because a year ago we just launched. And so in 1 year we've really significantly increased our revenues.
Can you give us some highlights from your quarter?
Yes, absolutely. So in addition to the gross revenue increasing by 90%, our management fees decreased 26% to only $8,347. Our software development costs increased 29% to $125,443. And our marketing expenditure was up significantly as we continued to expand our app throughout North America.
Penny, can you give us your outlook for the next quarter?
Absolutely. For the fourth quarter of 2017, based on already signed deals, management expects revenues to exceed those of the last fiscal quarter, which ended August 31st. Management expects to continue launching its mobile applications in many more restaurants during the fourth period of 2017, and we expect to generate increased revenue from Glance Pay Anywhere, which enables merchants to send bills and securely receive payment to and from customers in the fourth quarter. The company also expects to receive monthly revenue from its licensing agreements with Canopy Financial, Active Pay Distribution, and Euro Asia Pay Holdings, Inc. And Jim, what's been really great is we've been able to raise so much money because our stock price has been doing so well. We currently have about $9.5 million in the bank, and we've announced that we're going to be expanding our software engineering team, and we're going to be offering software development and doing stuff in the cryptocurrency and the blockchain space.
Well, that's a pretty exciting space to be in right now.
It really is. We announced in the past few weeks some of our initiatives in the cryptocurrency space. One is that we have an alliance with Netcoins, which is a company that offers a virtual ATM software to enable merchants to sell Bitcoins. And we've also appointed several advisors to our board recently, to our advisory board, that are experts in the area of blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Penny, for new listeners, can you maybe explain what GlancePay does?
Certainly. Glance Technologies owns and operates GlancePay, a streamlined payment system that revolutionizes how smartphone users choose where to dine, order goods and services, make payments, access digital receipts, redeem digital deals, earn rewards, and interact with merchants. Glance is building a valuable network of merchants and consumers and offers targeted in-app marketing, geo-targeted digital coupons, social media marketing, customer feedback, and custom rewards programs. The GlancePay mobile payment system consists of proprietary technology, which includes user apps available for free download in Apple and Android formats, merchant manager apps, a large-scale technology hosting environment with sophisticated anti-fraud technology, and lightning-fast payment processing. GlancePay has entered into significant licensing agreements to access the cannabis, fitness and wellness, foreign student, and tourist markets through Canopy Financial, ActivePay Distribution, and Euro Asia Pay Holdings.
And exactly how do you use GlancePay?
It's very simple. Download it in the App Store. Enter in your required information, and if you want to use it, you'll enter your credit card information, and then whenever you're at a merchant that accepts Glance as a payment method, you simply either tell them that you're going to use Glance or you take a picture of the bill.
That's simple.
Yep.
Penny, where are you traded?
We are listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol GET, G-E-T. We're also traded in the United States on the OTCQB under the symbol GLNNF.
And if people wanted more information on Glance, where could they find it?
They can go to one of our websites, either glancepay.com or glance.tech.
Penny, thanks a lot for the update.
Thank you, Jim. It's been a pleasure.
I've been speaking with Penny Green, co-founder and president of Glance Technologies, on October 27th. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at howstreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.